This is the Thanks for Rolling podcast. Believe it or not, it's back. It's been a long time.
Is this season 3 or is it season 2.5?
I was going to get rid of all the season numbers and just make it consistent episodes. It looks better when we can say we have 50 episodes versus...
It's true. I thought maybe we were just syncing up with Yellowstone. We were just on an extended mid-season break.
Yeah, we wouldn't be back until like 2026 if that was the case. R.I.P. Yellowstone. How are you?
Awesome, man.
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time. The last episode in studio, I sat here with Rob Cole. You weren't able to make it, but that episode was a little out of order because we had some pre-recorded from the finishers camp, so I don't even know what the order of release has been.
That's
been
right.
A little jumbled up lately.
And finishers camp was in July?
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
Seemed like it was recent, but that's been 5 months.
Yeah, that's a while. Damn. Yeah, I knew I hadn't been in here in a while, but I didn't realize it had been quite that long. That's right. I couldn't make the Liquid Rob episode. So, all right. Well, we have I don't want to call it a two-part episode, but we're doing a little intro here for what will be a Zoom call with some special guests, talking about an event we have coming up here at the gym. But we thought we'd do a little, I guess, year-end recap, maybe a little 2024 preview. Not too much prepared here, but we can at least set the stage for what's coming up and go from there. Then we'll roll into the next section.
Yeah, we had a pretty fun 2023 as far as stuff at the gym goes. Had some events. So we had our quintet back in March.
That's right.
Right? March?
Yep.
We had our quintet in March. Our team walked away with the win on that one. It was the all 10th Planet Finals, us and the 10th Planet Fairfield team.
Right.
That was a blast. Rave reviews, as always, on our quintet events. And then right after that, was the Friday Night Grappling League.
Right.
First April, we kicked that off.
First season of that, which was pretty cool. Again, great reviews, which always feels good, right? And then we rolled into the next event for FNGL, which was married with, well, I guess really we called it Rock and Rolls, right?
Yeah.
So why don't you talk about that? That was more your gestation.
Yeah, so we hosted an event here we put together, called it Rock and Rolls. And yeah, like you said, that was married together with another iteration of the Friday Night Grappling League, which was held on a Saturday afternoon and was not a league. It was just a one-day event, but not to get into specifics.
Right, that had everybody completely thrown off. They're like, wait a second, it's not on a Friday and it's not a league? Yeah, so we did a women's-only bracket with 8 competitors. We figured it'd be a good way to get a little extra attention to the Rock and Rolls event, give some of the local women competitors a venue, and so yeah, the name, whatever.
Maybe not the best branding we've ever come up with.
The next time we do it, it'll be back to a Friday night. I promise you guys. We have something in the books for this spring too. So
yeah, and then so the Rock and Rolls part of it was the idea was to have a big open mat with live music, and to just beef up the scope of the event. I made it a fundraiser. So we took donations. All donations we gave to Adopt a Cop, BJJ. So that money goes straight to sponsoring police officers to train jiu-jitsu for free, essentially. We have a pretty good contingency of officers that train with us. So that was a program that I was happy to give some money back to. And I think we ended up raising, it was enough money for 2 officers to train for a full year. So
that's awesome.
It was pretty solid.
Yeah, that's great.
And then we had live music by the Boneyard. They're a local rock and metal cover band. Had a bunch of people here for open mat. It's a good time.
Yeah, everybody raved about. I got a lot of reviews for that whole day in the DMs. You know, people were pretty excited about it. It was pretty cool. A lot of energy.
Yeah, everyone's like, I want to roll to live music all the time now. I'm like, well, I don't think that's in the budget, but I appreciate the review.
So that's 3 big events in a year.
Yeah, we had Fionn here for a seminar back in the spring as well.
That's right.
Sold that out.
How could I forget about that?
Yeah.
Yikes. Yeah, then we had some cool podcast stuff, right? We got to obviously sit down with Fionn for a while. Got to sit down with JT.
Yep.
which was a highlight. So pretty successful.
It was a solid year.
Yeah, pretty successful.
And then within that mix, we completely switched our teaching and training style here and adopted the ecological approach pretty much completely. I wouldn't say we're 100% perfectly ecologically aligned right now, but I think we're into it more than most are.
What would you say is the gap? Like, what's the tail that needs to be adjusted, would you say? Oh, you mean all the classes across the board, like you're saying?
Yeah, we don't have every single class integrated. Yes. We have the majority of them, and then I think maybe any shortcomings still in the classes that we are teaching ecologically. I think there might just be some loose ends that will be tied up as we all study and learn more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's a good segue into our kind of chapter coming up next, right? So we have some guests on board. I won't spoil kind of what the main topic is, but you've gotten a chance to become pretty heavily involved in at least a segment of the ecological training world. Mm-hmm. And when we were down at Finishers, one of the big draws there was to kind of experience Greg Souders and his work, which was really the first time that I got exposed to that style or methodology of training.
Right. Because at that point we had been implementing the methodology here for 4 months at that point. Just based on what we were learning by watching through the interwebs and studying on our own. So that was definitely a cool opportunity to get to run through a class with Greg, and get to chat with him a little bit after, and then get to interview his guys, DeAndre and Noah, which we put out as an episode a while back.
Right. Yeah, we'll link to a bunch of these episodes that we're talking about. We had Ryan Bartlett was on about Adopt a Cop at one point. So we talked to Noah and DeAndre, so we'll have those linked up there as well. It's funny because that really changed. I mean, it changed everything at the gym, really.
It did.
And I remember pretty early on, one of the guys had said to you, like, hey, I feel like I've learned more now in 3 months than I did in a year and a half or 2 years beforehand, which is like mind-boggling, right? As someone who never trained that way leading up to it, like, it's really fascinating to see how people have adapted to that methodology.
Yeah, and I feel like now at the beginning, we were taking an existing student base, and we literally flipped the switch overnight, right? We were talking about it one day, and I'm like, all right, tomorrow we're just going to try it. So, our contingent of students that have been with us, it was a huge change overnight. So it took some time to get all of them on board and understanding the differences and the whys and the hows. But now that we've gotten through that, everyone new that comes in, they don't know any different. It's just, this is jiu-jitsu to them.
Right. It was interesting. I think last week we had somebody in from, I don't know exactly what school he was in, but he was from Virginia, right? And I always feel like when I have someone come into class who has trained before, like, always need to give them some context. Like, by the way, you're not going to see what you've seen however long you've been training for before. And to see, like, I like to just kind of watch how they kind of adapt to what we're doing. It's very similar to what everybody would do when we first started doing it, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, we're at the point now where every class you don't feel the need to have to give the background story of what we're doing and why we're doing it. I like to throw it in there still every now and then just to remind and kind of recenter everybody's focus on what we're doing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the train's rolling now.
Yeah. Any thoughts for what's 24 is gonna look like?
So we don't have much of an outlook too far ahead, but we're kicking off the year pretty early. January 14th, we have a team in a 16-team quintet at the Connors Grappling Invitational. Is that the proper name of it? Mm-hmm. Connors Martial Arts is teamed up with Enigma on promoting some events. So we got an invite to that. I think we were one of the first invites we got from Christos, and before I even hit up the team, I was just like, yes, we're doing this. We didn't even know it was a 16-man at the time. I figured it'd be like, or 16 team, figured it'd be like an 8 team, but that's a big event. Enigma always puts on a solid show. We've been involved in one of their shows in the past, and then obviously Connors is your previous home, so we still have friends out there. So it'll be a good event, and there's some heavy hitting teams coming into it. So we're excited for it. The guys are already training hard and hoping to put on a good show.
Yeah. So I think I've seen 4 teams totally announced so far. Is that right?
I think 3.
Broadway.
Oh, yeah, 4. So far it's our team, Broadway Jiu-Jitsu. So they have a solid team. Know a couple of guys there. Daniel Gracie.
That's it.
And the Connors team.
Yep. With the Captain John stepping up.
Captain John stepping in.
The world champion.
Props to him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great.
When we were making the team, I considered, I'm like, should I jump into this? I'm just like, my desire to get in there with the big guys it's just gone.
Yeah.
Props to John.
Yeah. Yeah, I know a bunch of those guys on his team, so it should be pretty good shot. Obviously, we've had a bazillion run-ins with Rory over the years, so yeah, that'll be cool. It's a pretty exciting event. 16 teams in a quintet is like amazing to me.
$2,500 cash prize.
It's a lot of jiu-jitsu.
There's a lot of jiu-jitsu.
That'll be great. It's pretty cool to see them hosting events, at John's place. So,
yeah, and I think the guys are targeting 1 or 2 tournaments locally, regionally, I guess, before that to get tuned up and be ready to go. So that's where our sights are set leading into 2024. Don't really have any other big plans yet. Going to be looking at getting John Boteo back out here definitely in 24, probably spring, maybe early summertime. Imagine we'll get another FNGL proper season going.
Yep, I've been chewing on some ideas for that.
I think you teased that we might do the absolutes.
Yeah, that's where my head is right now, is that we'll do some absolutes. There's been a lot of, kind of bigger guys who have hit me up in the past being like, hey, how about some, absolutes or heavyweights?
I like that idea. It takes away any logistics with weights and weighing in and, opens up the competitor pool to a much broader group of people.
Right.
It'd be easy to fill a bracket.
I'm thinking about potentially doubling the size. So going from 8 to 16, if possible. Again, that depends on how many of you out there are interested.
I think that's a good idea because we flew through the matches a lot faster than I think either of us anticipated.
Right.
Last time around, like we were in and out of here 45 minutes every Friday.
Like under an hour. Yeah, it was crazy. And I think even if we do 16, we have the mat space to probably run 2. I'm thinking.
Depends how wild the big boys are getting.
Yeah, right. We're talking to you, Tyler King. Danger
well,
blanket.
when we've done the quintets here, we do 2 matches at a time in the opening rounds.
Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking. That will get us through it quicker. I'm also considering the idea that maybe we don't go every single week to make it a little less onerous on people to get out here if they're coming from another location. Of course, that extends the overall time frame. So I've got to work through some of that. We'll make a few rule changes based on our learnings from, both FNG events before.
Yeah. I think it's important. We've talked about this when we were planning the last one, is trying to keep the competitor pool as local as possible because of the commute.
Right.
Trying to drive your way into Springfield from most directions at 5 o'clock on a Friday is not ideal.
Right. Be curious to see whether or not some of the veterans want to make a return. We'll see what happens there.
Yeah, the cool thing with the absolutes is it's, you don't have to have just the big guys. There's a lot of smaller guys that like to get in there and scrap.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see some new names. Ultimately, if we did do this long enough, I always had it in my head that we would, whatever. If we have 10 seasons, 8 seasons even, to be able to go back at like year 9 and say, or season 9, I should say, and be like, all right, let's bring back the 8 champions, right, and have an absolute champions bracket. Like, that would be pretty dope.
Yeah.
So, yeah, more to come. We got a lot of logistics to work out. Again, I know I teased the absolutes, but once we get through the holidays, I'll start putting some actual pen to paper on how that's going to shake out.
Nice.
So, yeah, that'll be good. All right. Anything else we should cover for 24? It's early, I know.
It's early. Haven't put too much thought into much further out than that, but I'm sure we'll have some fun shit going on.
Yeah. Looking forward to it. All right, so we've got 4 guests joining us. Three guests joining us.
3 guests.
3 guests joining us. So we'll see if we can make the the Zoom work properly this time, since we always seem to have some issues. So I hope you enjoy the rest of this. We'll be back. Hopefully we'll have some more frequent podcasts. We got to get the momentum going for the start of the year.
Yeah, I've been keeping a list of potential guests that I want to get on here. So I think I have a good variety that I'm looking at. Just need to get the guys scheduled and get them in here.
Yeah. If you guys have ideas as listeners, to someone that you think will be interesting for the community, and it doesn't just have to be jiu-jitsu based, right? I mean, we've had people in here who have never trained at all.
Right.
Just some kind of connection to us, and people with interesting stories in their lives. There's always a good conversation. So, all right, enjoy part 2.
We can go around the table and just give everyone an opportunity to do a quick intro of themselves, just to get acquainted here, and then we'll get into talking about all the fun stuff that we have going on and coming up. Rob, let's go ahead and start with you. A lot of our viewers / listeners should be somewhat familiar with you since you were just on one of our most recent episodes, but if you can give us a brief intro to yourself.
Rob Cole. I've been training martial arts over 30 years, grappling for over 20, multiple martial arts styles. Currently coaching at Ascension Athletics. I coach for the Globetrotters. Pretty much that's it at this point. I don't know what else, what intros to say anymore. I've been doing a bunch of these, so it's kind of weird when I keep getting asked. I'm like, oh, what else? That is, so I'm pretty good with that. So
awesome.
And coaching at the latest camp in March.
Can't wait to get into talking a little bit about that. Denise, Why don't you go next?
My name is Denise. I started training jiu-jitsu in the Bay Area of California in about 2005. I am currently living in Southern Colorado in a small town called Pueblo West. And I am the owner and head coach and sole operator of Grindhouse Grappling.
Awesome. I was just telling Jeff right before we all got on here how I really enjoy getting your perspective on things as a woman that is solely owning and operating her own jiu-jitsu academy.
Thank you. You are one of my biggest cheerleaders, so I appreciate you a lot.
Thank you. Aaron.
Aaron Parham. I'm originally from Louisiana, started training jiu-jitsu around 2006. And I'm currently a brown belt, trained out of Charleston, South Carolina, and I started the Eco Dynamics for jiu-jitsu, now submission grappling Discord server, and kind of managed that and kind of fell into the role of helping grow this community.
So awesome. I think that's a perfect segue. If you could get into a little bit more of how all of that came to be, how'd you get into the ecological approach at first, and then how did that morph into you standing up this Discord server and getting this community together?
Yeah, so I was training at mainly a judo school for 5 or 6 years up until right before COVID, and so I would take on a lot of the jiu-jitsu classes, and I was trying to do something different than the normal, 3 techniques and drill kind of class for a long time, and just trying to figure it out on my own without really having any background. And then got decently far on my own before I came across Greg and what he was doing around COVID time, and then I was a moderator on Reddit, and it started popping up on there too. So I had a chance to go to his school when I was on a work trip, and I popped in one class, and everything kind of clicked after just playing one game basically and talking to him for a little bit. So it started to make sense of what he was doing, and then I dove into the resources. But then like I said, I was a moderator on Reddit. So one of the first podcasts Greg did, it got really polarizing and it kind of blew up on Reddit, and he jumped on there and he did a podcast about it, and mentioned me dropping in to his gym. But there were about 50-50 people on that thread were either like for it or completely against, the ecological approach and what he was saying. And there wasn't really anywhere to talk about people who were interested in it. And I kind of go down the path of like, all right, well, what is it, without getting, all the troll hater commentary on Reddit. So started the Discord, and there was, a handful of us at the time, and that was at the beginning of 2023, and now we're almost 1,100 people on there, and it's pretty thriving at this point. So I just started it, and it's kind of just taken off. So.
Awesome. Yeah, I think last time we chatted, we were talking about how it would be cool if we were able to go back and see which member we were on the Discord. Because I think I joined in probably March, and yeah, it's exploded since then.
Have you told you guys how?
I think we were under 500 at that point, and then I don't know what happened. I think Rob posted something, and it just went insane. So.
Have you told them how you ended up, or we ended up, the school ended up on the Discord? I remember the conversation. This is a test. See if he actually remembers what happened.
I don't remember how I came across the Discord. You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
We had started, was it March? So we had started to implement, and it was probably one of the first couple classes where we had
Kelly and Rachel.
Rachel, thank you. Good Lord. So Kelly was actually really excited because he was like, oh, that's right. You guys are playing games. So like, this is what I've been wanting to do. And he came over at the end of class and was like, hey, did you know there's a Discord server?
That's right.
And we were like, oh, so there's other people thinking about this, right? And, outside of just Greg. And then we plugged in from there, right? And it kind of took off after that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that even the initial growth, I was expecting, some people to just trickle in that were skeptical and there to continue the argument. But from the very beginning, it's been like, upper belts and very, even the lower belts that have joined or like, have backgrounds in really, crazy sports science or things like that. So it's like, it's attracted a lot of, very positive, people that are interested in it. And there hasn't been a whole lot of, negativity or anything to kind of slow it down. So it's kind of been kind of nice.
Aaron, I'm curious, you said, you had kind of been looking for a new way to do things rather than the traditional way that probably all of us started with, right? But did you know what it was? Like, what was the, was it just a feeling like, hey, there's got to be a better way to do this? Like, what was your kind of mindset as you were moving? Maybe you didn't know it was actually this, ecological approach, but, kind of what was it that made you think that there was something different that had to happen?
Well, yeah, and there was a couple things. One was, the feeling of always going to a class and like, because I was in the Marines before, so like, I like a workout and I like to be physically exhausted at the end of it. So like any of the classes where you go home afterwards, I don't even have to wash my gi, like I get really upset, So that was one of the main things I wanted to approach differently is like, how can I just up the workload, but not like make it a competitive level class. And people have the opportunity, and the instructional market right now, even 10 years ago was big. So if you want to learn that way, you can sit at home all day and do that. I don't think people want to go to the gym and have a live action instructional. To me, that's always been my biggest pet peeve is this going to a class and being lectured in a very, hands-on athletic hobby. It's not really fun to me.
Yeah.
That was one of the main things I wanted to approach. And then I was a purple belt at the time. So I was starting, kind of shift of like, I don't need to know 5 sweeps or 5 this. Like I started to, figure out the concepts of what makes a sweep work and all these kind of things. So then I started making these like little rules for myself that I would do during a roll. I noticed things like watching wrestling or whatever. I would say, all right, wrestlers do a really good job of like never letting people connect their hands together or something like that. And so I would make little rules in my head, and I would go into like rolls against people. I'm like, all right, this roll I'm going to focus on nothing but not letting them connect their hands and just see what happens. So I was playing games, but I was the only one that knew the rules, and I was just experimenting. So then I started things that would work, things like that would work. Some of them were just dumb, and I would end up in a roll and be like, oh, this didn't work out, and I'd scratch it. But some of them would become, what I think we talk about now is like invariance. Like that's kind of what I was trying to figure out at the time. I just didn't have a word for it or whatever. But so then I call them habits, because then I started finding these things like that, like not letting people grab my head, being proactive about like grip fighting anything that touches my head. So to me, I was building habits that if I just did these during a roll, regardless of whatever else was going on, like I would be okay, and it was a lot of survival stuff. And that's when I was kind of getting into Prit stuff at the same time. But so I started making classes. I started trying to figure out situational drills or like kind of live roll things where I could force people to do those things. Like now I know the words for it, like focus your attention on this, and the other person is going to try to do this. Go live and you make it happen. So it's kind of like there, but I didn't know all the pieces of it. And I really didn't know like the planning part. That was the other big problem for me, was I would show up to a class and I wasn't they didn't know I was going to be teaching that night. I didn't know I was going to be teaching that night. So I would like walk in sometimes and be like, hey, can you take over class? So I had to start like planning and having classes prepared so that if, I walked in one night and he said, teach a class, like I would have something prepared. And I hated being not prepared to run a class. So kind of all that together now makes sense with the ecological approach, because you're planning these things ahead of time. Like, you rarely ever go into something an ad hoc whole class. So.
Yeah, that's super interesting to me.
How did you come across Greg in the first place? Was it just social media clips?
Yeah, I think whatever the first podcast he did, it might have been Sonny's. It was either Sonny's or one of those podcasts I listened to, and everything in that, it just made sense. I was like, oh, okay, this is exactly what. Like and then he said he's been doing it. He's been doing it for 8 years. And I was like, I've been struggling for like the same amount of time, not knowing, the resources he was trying to, get help with. So that's how I first heard him. And then within a month, I think it was like November of 22, like a month after that podcast came out, I had a work trip up to DC, and I was like, okay, his school's like 30 minutes away. So I went in for a class and roll with, Brian, who just won purple belt, and absolutely got demolished by him. So I was like, okay, there's something going on here. This guy's onto something. So.
Yeah, that's cool.
Did you know which door to go to when you got to his gym?
I don't remember. I know, there's it's like all bay doors, right? Yeah. No, I just kind of stumbled around. It was in the middle of the night too.
He's always talking about the people that can't solve the problem of which door to go to.
So, Rob, how did you get connected to the Discord side of things, like this particular group, I should say?
I think I got a couple messages from people, because I do like some Instagram stuff, and I was talking about ecological stuff here and there as I was playing with it, and I got some messages, and I never really jumped on it at first. And then when I started getting in deeper, then I got somebody else I knew to send me a message. And I'm like, oh, let me just go check it out. And then once I jumped on it, and then, seen a bunch of people that were talking about it, and I was like, oh, this is a really, really good community. So I really liked it. It was real positive. Like Aaron said, it wasn't just like because I have no time to like argue online anymore. I don't do that type of stuff anymore, which is so something like that. It just came so easy, just on that Discord, and everybody's just sharing information, talking about easy to find links on YouTube or what books to try out. And I just started promoting it more, throwing up the links here and there. And a couple other people who were using Instagram started sending it, and it seemed like it just started blowing up even more and more. So I could have probably got on a couple months earlier, but I just didn't jump on yet. And then when I did, I was like, all right, this is a good spot,
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it just meshed in completely what I was doing. So that's pretty much how I found the Discord.
Do you remember when it was?
Now, you know what? No, I can't remember now. I'd have to go look. I'm so bad with like days and months and all that stuff and doing. I'm getting old now, so I don't remember those things as much anymore. So,
So I'm not sure I told you this, Jeff, but Jeremy Pavlik did a bunch of training with Rob leading up to and during your FNGL season.
No kidding. That's funny. No, I didn't know that. Trying to unlock the key.
Well, actually, it's funny. We just reconnected again right before he was having those matches at that show, and we just started playing a little. I showed him like 10 minutes of like some defensive jiu-jitsu stuff through like the ecological approach, and then he had the match. I showed them out on Tuesday. We trained it for like 10 minutes the most. And then he had that match on Friday, and he was able to escape the rear naked choke with the exact same thing, and he won. So I was like, so that was to show him how defensive jiu-jitsu kind of works, and then also through the ecological lens. And now he's been doing it a lot. We train together, usually once a week or whatever, and he's starting to implement it more. So it's just kind of spreading that way. So that's really cool to see.
That's awesome. Yeah, big fan of Jeremy. Like that guy a lot.
Yeah, good dude.
Yeah, yeah. So Denise, the question is the floor is yours. How did you get connected in?
So this is what I love about the grappling community. Like 10 years ago, I went to Phoenix, or like suburbs of Phoenix Mesa, to go visit my family. They all live out there. And I had always wanted to train at a 10th Planet school, but there was none in Santa Cruz. Like Denny had just started up in Oakland, I think. So it was, there was like not really much 10th Planet going on back at that time. And so I was super excited, and I did a week of drop-ins over at John Botello's school and met Pat. And I still have the videos. I still watch some of them and share with my kids. He was showing me like electric chair sweeps and all this cool stuff. And they were just all just so nice. And I stayed in touch kind of with him, like loosely, just following his progress out east and opening his own school and that whole scene. And then one day I saw him posting up about games, and I messaged him. It was like a Saturday morning or Friday afternoon. I was like, what are you doing? And he was like, oh, you gotta check this out, it's really cool. So I spent the whole weekend like researching. I was on ChatGPT trying to get vocabulary and resources and all this stuff, and so that's how I got into it. I've been teaching kids on and off for a long time, and doing as you do as a woman, and running camps. So I always played a lot of games, but I never thought about doing it with grown-ups. And I've been a math teacher for about 20 years, or been in education. So like my first year of teaching, there's so many parallels. Like it's weird to me, like how much teaching jiu-jitsu or grappling is like teaching math, because it's like linear, but you can, go off in different directions, all this stuff. So my first year of teaching math, I was like the sit and get teacher. Like I do the problem, you copy me doing the problem, you go home and try to do it, you can't do it, we come back and pretend none of that ever happened, and we start over the next day. So after my first year of teaching, I was like, I'm going to die if I have to do this for the rest of my career. So I totally changed it. I implemented project-based learning, problem-based learning, embedded context learning, attended to all the socio-emotional stuff, just like we do in eco teaching. It's so similar to the way, like the transition in my teaching here in grappling coaching has just felt seamless, because there's so many parallels with academics. I mean, obviously there's differences because it's motor skills versus cognitive skills, but the more research I read, the more I see that there are like adjacent tangential like theories. Like there's a lot of bumping into each other or brushing up against each other. So uh yeah, so that's how I got into it. And I went into my school and I told my guys on that Monday, I was like, we're gonna try something totally different. If you hate it, we'll go back, but I think this is gonna be cool. And let's just see how it goes. And after 2 weeks, they were like, never do the talking to us again, please. So yeah.
That's great. Sounds familiar.
100%.
They love it. They love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
But it takes work, like uh and upper belts are the ones that have kind of been not all of them, but a couple of them it had a little bit of trouble like understanding like concept based, principle based instruction, task focused, goal oriented versus I'm going to tell you exactly what to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, we've had our little ups and downs, but overall, my students trust me, and we have really open communication, I think, which is key. I chase them around. I still do. I chase them out in the parking lot even to get feedback from them, like how'd the class go, like any plus or minus or anything like that. And overwhelmingly, it's been positive.
I'm curious to ask all four of you, actually. Do you ever worry that students are going to come in and be like, what the hell is this? Like, this isn't what I expected. This isn't what I would see if I was like watching jujitsu someplace else, or I've been in another school. Like, are you ever concerned with that? You're like, do you guys all feel like committed enough to the approach that if someone's not on board, they're not on board and that's it, right? Like, how do you guys think about that?
I front load students. So when they come in, I tell them it's going to feel different than it's going to feel like learning in a class, like a class where you have to do work to learn. Like, I'm not going to tell you, I tell them explicitly, I'm not going to tell you everything to do. I'm going to give you a goal. I'm going to give you some guardrails on what you can and can't do, and just send you to work and ask you to figure it out. And it's going to feel really weird and really hard at the beginning. One thing that I did that has been super helpful was to pair every new student up with an established student for their first several classes. And that's a nice transition for them because they don't feel so like weird about not knowing what to do. Like there's no expectation that they're going to know what to do.
Yeah. Because I think that like if I teach you, all right, well, your right hand goes here, your left hand goes here, your foot goes on the hip here, right? Like people like I'll say this, like an easier entry point, right, into the movements, right? They don't have to think about that stuff.
There's no thought involved in that.
Right,
yeah.
right. Which I know is the exact point, right? Like why we're not doing that, but there's like that level of comfort, right, when you're giving them specifics of exactly how they have to get through their first class, right, or first several classes.
The teens are pretty easy. I just tell them, I'm going to feel like your math teacher that answers every question you ask with a question. And they're like, oh, okay, I get it. And they just go do their thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think like we talked about this for a second on our intro earlier. The initial transition, when we were taking all of our existing students and suddenly one day to the next, completely changing how we did things. I put a lot of effort in almost every day to make sure I'm explaining the hows and the whys and the whats. But now that we've transitioned all of them, I feel like new people off the street walking into their first jiu-jitsu class, they don't know better either way. So as far as they know, this is just how jiu-jitsu goes. This is what jiu-jitsu class is like. I mean, for context, Jeff teaches half of our fundamentals program. So, I mean, you have to deal with this more on the front end than I do because I just teach the advanced classes. So I have the people that are already on board and bought into it.
Oh yeah, I'm asking for my own personal advancement here, right? So yeah,
but for my opinion, we're 100% bought in on it. So if we get the one oddball that comes in that doesn't like it and that's not how they want to train, then there's plenty of other, no offense, but there's plenty of other places to train that might offer what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and again, we talked about this in the intro a little bit. I specifically am more conscious of it when someone comes in who has trained at another location, in a more traditional sense, right? And taking the extra second to actually explain to them, like, this is not going to be that, right? You're going to feel different, right? And I'm not going to tell you exactly how to do X, Y, Z. And I'm always just like hyper conscious, right? Or very aware of like what their reaction is, like what their body language is saying. Like, are they making a face as soon as I say that, right? So, that was 100% why I was asking, right? Like, how do you guys think about that overall?
I think I get more shade for being a 5'2" female coach who owns the gym than any teaching method.
Yeah.
I get more of the sizing me up on the way in. But luckily, like, our gym has just a totally different vibe than any other school here. We're a little bit away from most people, and we just attracted a different crew. So it's nice for, like, folks in town to have options, like very traditional training versus, are your nails cut? Come on in, kind of thing. Like, I don't care what you're wearing. I don't care if you're late. I'm just happy you're here. We're not doing punishment burpees. So it's just we play wrestle ball. Like, it's just a different scene.
Yeah.
Should we talk about camp?
I was just going to say, do you want to let the lid off of what really brought you guys all here?
Yay.
Well, I have a comment real quick on what we were just talking about. Yeah, I mean, so I don't own the gym I train at, but I, teach, quite often. But I would just say that the ratio of people who enjoy the class to the people who are slightly skeptical to have comments is probably like 1 in 20. So it kind of gives me the confidence that if I were to own a school and that was what I saw, like, I wouldn't really get too hung up on the one person over the 20 who are really enjoying it. At least in my experience, that's how it's been. And then, but yeah, and then to Denise, what you were talking about with I feel like the same way with, probably around 3 or 4 year blue belt and up, like, they kind of are the line of where people get a little skeptical, it seems. But I think, at least from my perspective, it seems like, because I know, like, I can watch someone do a movement and I don't need you to explain it. Like, I can pick up enough from watching it, and most purple and brown belts probably can. Like, I think that's what they want to see. Like, when you don't show them what you want them to do, and they're focused on kind of, we've all been in that kind of path of, like, your instructor wants you to do something that looks good versus gets the job done. And we're kind of switching to, like, I don't care what it looks like. I just want you to have an outcome. And I think that's where a lot of people get hung up, is like, they don't know how you want it to look versus what the end goal is sometimes. So like, I want you to pass guard. I don't care what it looks like. It could be ugly, but as long as you pass the guard, then attaboy.
Yeah, it's fascinating because I think about, we've had people come into class before. Actually, just recently, somebody was asking us, well, can we learn more submissions, right? Like, I want to learn an armbar. And even like showing them some basic movements around that without telling them, well, the idea here is that you're really trying to hyperextend the elbow, right? Like, I've just think about that. Like, I'm not going to show you how to do it. I just want you to think about what I'm trying to accomplish is a hyperextension of the elbow. And like, okay. But like, the people lose that, right? When they get caught up in the, like, well, I'm trying to, make sure the thumb's pointed up and I'm trying to extend my hips, blah, 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 blah. Like, they don't think about what they're actually trying to accomplish. It's just a series of movements, right? And that's kind of something I've always thought about in jiu-jitsu. Like, all right, what's the big picture? Forget the mechanics of how I'm supposed to do this, but the big picture I'm trying to accomplish. I think that's just, that fundamental understanding of, like, just the objective, let alone the movements itself, right, is where the gains can be made in the education of folks. All right, now you want to rip it off?
All right. Well, I mean, the lid's already up. Camp is sold out.
Yeah.
Do we have an official name? Did we ever come up with one?
Rob did.
Ecopalooza?
Yeah, Ecopalooza.
That's what you've been calling it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that as our internal working name, but I like it. So we're hosting a camp. It's actually going to be here in our gym, 10th Planet Springfield, March 2024, which is coming up right around the corner. It's crazy. But we have an entire lineup of all instructors that are operating in this world of the ecological approach. So we got Greg Souders to headline it, which I think was a huge grab. And props to Denise. She put in pretty much all of the legwork on acquiring the talent for the camp. So we got Greg. We have Ed Ingemel's coming from England, which was huge. I've been listening to Ed a lot. We have Scott Sivright from Primal in Milwaukee. So Scott's big on applying the ecological approach to MMA. But obviously he has a jiu-jitsu background as well. Rob, myself, and Josh Peacock. I don't know Josh well. Who can give a good briefing on his background? I've listened to him a little bit, but I don't want to screw it up.
Josh he has a master's in educational psychology, but he did not teach anywhere as far as I know. He got into like a marketing kind of job. So he's like out doing corporate stuff. He's super knowledgeable about research. He's able to dig into research and operationalize a lot of complex topics in a way that is super understandable for folks. So he's got the Combat Learning podcast, and he's a Taekwondo black belt, maybe. I'm pretty sure he's a Taekwondo black belt. So that's how he got into eco. He interviews on his podcast. He interviews people from all different sports and researchers as well.
That's cool. So what's the layout? What should people expect over the course of the weekend?
So we are planning. So it's a 3-day camp. So Friday, the first day, is going to be a coaching workshop. So picture more like classroom, conference style learning, less on the mat time. So I believe the idea we're running with here is these guys will be talking about how they approach and formulate their lesson plans, their classes, their structure. We're still sorting out specific schedules on all this stuff, but Friday is meant to be the day for the coaches to learn more on how to coach. And then Saturday, Sunday will be 1-hour blocks of training with the various coaches, and then some open mat time and maybe some social activities mixed in.
And then somewhere in there, we'll work in a round table around kids programming. It's more not like a formal workshop as much as coaches bringing ideas and resources to share with each other.
Yeah, I think that's going to fit in on Friday, right? During the coaching day.
So. Yeah.
Cool. So Rob, I'd like to get your thoughts on this whole camp thing. As you know, we've leaned on your experiences a lot as being a Globetrotter instructor, and the experiences that people get from these camps, and what you feel like are the benefits and the outcomes from these big multi-day events.
Yeah, it's funny. It's interesting with the Globetrotter stuff. They have it set up so nice, and you have all these different hour blocks of classes, and so you get to see all these different perspectives on how people coach. It's a lot of technical stuff, but then you get different coaches, like Preet and Chris Paynes, and more on the conceptual side. So you get all these different type of coaches, and then you have a lot of open mat time. And to me, that's always a big thing, because you get to train with all these different people you never trained with before. So you kind of get to work on all your type of stuff. So it's so much like supercharged amount of training in one session or one day, kind of like what we want to do in ecological approach is we want to maximize that time. So I see this camp being similar, but very different. We're definitely going to get a lot more because I've done a couple ecological classes for the Globetrotter camp, and I always try to frame it that way, and don't want people going too hard at first because it's a long day, right? It's going to be a long day, so we all get excited about training, and I'm sure Greg's going to run through some stuff and get people going and sweating, and we just all have to keep saving our energy and try to just keep training all day long, but have a good balance of the conceptual side, the understanding, all the underpinnings of it, and then the implementation, how to do it. And I'm excited to see how other coaches are doing these things and what I can take from them, what they can learn from me, maybe. I've been to Greg's, so I've seen how Greg kind of does things, and then it'll be interesting to see how Ed runs his stuff. I went to your school. I didn't get to see how you run your stuff. I just was doing my class there. So, and then Scott, it's going to be this is going to be a lot of grappling, which is great. And just like a supercharged approach to it. And I think this is like the first one like this. So it'll be kind of like the mecca of how these classes go on, bringing all these coaches together. If we just keep going on this idea and bringing in more people and just kind of expanding all our knowledge base on this, because I think the main goal of everybody is just getting better and how to learn better and how to coach better. And this would be one of the best ways to do it, in my opinion, in this type of environment, because everybody's together and you can actually see it and feel it instead of podcast or Reddit or the internet or Instagram. We got to touch, we got to grab each other, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm super excited about it. I'm so glad it came about so quickly, and we're going to be doing this in March. I'm ready to go. I constantly think about what I'm going to teach, what I'm going to coach. It always changes every day. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm really excited for it. Big time.
I'm spending days sitting here like, what am I going to teach with Greg in attendance?
Yeah, we'll be damn good. That's all you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, you go wait outside.
Greg could critique us as we're going, or
it'll be good. It's nerve-wracking, but it'll be very good.
Well,
go ahead.
It's interesting because I'll do a Globetrotter class, and then you'll have 10 or 15 other black belts or coaches just watching you, and you just gotta, you gotta try to make it interesting. You gotta be on point, So I'm pretty prepped for that. I'm used to that, but it'll be interested in this format because it's so specific. Where in Globetrotters, you do what you do. And this one is this is what people are wanting to see, this specific style, this way to do things. So I've been honing that a little bit. So we'll see how that goes.
Someone on the Discord was asking if there's going to be downtime between the live days, the Saturday and Sunday. I'm pretty sure we have open mat time scheduled in between the sessions, right?
Yeah, I know nothing's final yet, but we're looking at fitting in some open mat times, lunch break, that kind of stuff. So I think there will be some downtime. And I mean, like Rob was just saying, people are just going to have to manage their output.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can go nuts first session if you want. If you got the gas tank to go all day, that's right. Good for you.
More power to you.
Yeah.
It's like a music festival. You can't watch every band.
Yeah.
Ecopalooza.
Yeah, right. Aaron, did you ever expect that this would be kind of where things went? Like, where's your head when you think about the fact that now there's going to be a Ecopalooza?
So, did I expect it to actually happen? No, but when I have a checklist that I created at the beginning of last year of things I wanted to get done. It was like milestones I wanted to hit, like teach 5 classes, teach 10 classes, teach 15 classes, all the way down to, I have one for 1,000 people on Discord that I thought would never happen. It happened. I had a camp on there that I thought was never going to happen, and it happened in a year. So yeah, it was on my dream list, but to happen within a year is kind of insane.
That's cool. That's pretty cool.
I know before we launched the camp, we we just, we had some weekly meetings. We discussed, we thought, there's a big enough group of people interested that, it would sell, people would show up. But did anyone expect that it would sell out 50 plus spots in less than 2 days? I mean, I couldn't believe it. I'm still getting messages from people.
Half of it sell out on that first day. Like, that was insane.
Yeah.
And did you say that
there's almost enough on the wait list for
really
at another fall camp?
That's nuts.
Ooh.
Yeah, I was really happy it sold out so quick. At first I was thinking, okay, we're going to have to, everybody get on Instagram, start sending out our messages. Who's going to do this? I could go check out this. And it was like, all right, it's already sold out. And I got people messaging me, hey, how do I get in? Or, hey, save me a spot, stuff like that. So, I think it's a great time to do it. I'm glad we jumped on it and did it early enough to where, there's still some interest in it and we can just kind of build off this, momentum. So I was really happy with it selling out that quickly.
The quick sellout, it just relieves all the stress of planning any event. So now, the people are committed, the money's in the bank, and we can just focus on making it as awesome as possible.
Yeah.
Well, what I really like is that it's not like intended to be a revenue generating event. We talked about like registration price points that would allow us to bring in the folks that we wanted to bring in and pay for their accommodations and their food and all that stuff. And that it's in the spirit of learning and helping the community grow, which I think is really cool.
Did you guys have a list of folks that you were, I mean, I'm assuming Greg was one of them, but like, did you have another list of folks that you were like, hey, if we can get so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so, like we're golden? Like, how did you guys come to the list of instructors? Rob and Pat not included.
They forced me to.
Started calling people.
I think we had 3 or 4 people, and then it was like a Greg, and if we could get Greg and any of the other ones, then it would be okay.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of the idea.
We didn't think we were going to get Ed because we couldn't afford to fly him over from London.
Right.
And he decided that this was too important to miss. And so he's flying himself over and we'll house him. So that's phenomenal. The one person I really wanted to bring out that couldn't come is Cal Jones, the judo guy that lives in Wales. He's phenomenal. He works in a school with kids, so he teaches PE and like sports to kids. He's ecoing them every day, and he's writing a book on eco for judo, and he understands the research, but just puts everything in such a easy to understand way. Like the way that he's helped me with judo training at my school, and just the very giving, like you message him, he's like, oh, let's have a Zoom and chat, and just giving up his time. So that's someone I'd like to bring in the future for sure. Or we have to do a European tour and go see those guys over that way. Everyone I contacted was super excited to come, willing to come. Wasn't like a hard sell with anyone. They're all being very generous with their time. They're good humans. So I'm really excited to just meet them in person and learn from them.
It's cool that, and again, I don't say necessarily to call myself an outsider, right? But it's cool to see that, people who do this style of teaching, like really believe in it, right? And to your point, right, Ed thought it was important enough that he would come over here and do it regardless, right? And I mean, some of that you can say about jiu-jitsu in general, right? But I think it's just cool to see, like, to take it one step further and like, hey, this is an important thing to get out there, an important thing for people to understand. And I just think about all the arguments that you see Greg in with people who just feel like they're coming, at least from my perspective, they get on and they just want him there so they can argue with him about points that whether or not, if there's any logic behind them or not, right? Like, it's just neat to see that those guys are all like, well, this is important. We're going to make this all happen.
Well, pretty much every sport has a professional organization where their coaches come together and talk about methods and talk about research and what's working and, collaborate and improve their practice. And they have conferences, and jiu-jitsu has one self-proclaimed governing body, the IBJJF. ADCC is getting bigger, so that, the pro scene has come on a lot, in the last few years. So that's casting a shadow, but we don't really have that same cohesion in the grappling community. And, I miss that because I really like talking with other teachers and academics. I learned a lot just from casual conversations, seeing what they're doing, hearing what's working and what's not, being able to get together in professional ways. So I love this, and I'm really hoping we can keep these going so that we have, ongoing, however this morphs into, but to continue professional conversations. And the conversations around coaching on the Discord are like none that I've ever seen in my whole time of grappling. Like I've never come across people that were digging into research. We're trying to use evidence-based practices. We're really trying to apply the hard concepts to their work every day, and helping each other so much, like just freely giving advice and resources, and here's what I did and here's how I did it, and check this out. So I think that there's a lot of room for this kind of scene right here that we've got to push out some professionalism just in grappling in general.
Yeah, well said.
I think it's hopefully a sign of the sport growing, because like Denise said, there's like USA Judo and there's USA Wrestling, and those all have coaching certifications and classes and things you can take. And like Greg says, we're in the leather helmet stage of our sport. So hopefully, up until this point, most schools and instructors are just people who got the black belt open the school. But now we're seeing like people wanting to get into like the science of coaching beyond the knowledge of your sport, the knowledge of just grappling. So it's like, how do I make myself better as a coach also? So hopefully, to me, I hope to take that as a sign that the sport of grappling is growing, and people are taking coaching more seriously than just you work your way up to black belt, now you open a school, and that makes you qualified to be a coach. And it's not always the case.
Yeah, I think what was telling is almost everybody that signed up for the camp added on the coaching workshop too. It's probably 80 or 90% of the attendees are wanting to get the coaches session too. And I've had several reach out to me asking what the format of that day is going to be, and saying that they're hoping it's, going to be more like classroom learning style. So you can tell the interest is really there for people to actually learn how to coach and not just, be on the mats just doing the jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, what I really like about this is it's such a concentrated time just on the training is obviously important, but the coaching is going to be a huge part. Because like I was on Scott's podcast. We recorded one a couple of weeks ago, and I was saying that what's nice about this eco stuff coming to light more recently, and even with the people that don't like it and say it's stupid and blah blah blah, at least what it's doing is pushing the conversation forward about coaching in general. Even if you want to be an IP person or an eco person, you still should. The conversation should be about coaching. It's in the older way, we just said the traditional and everybody's trained. They didn't really talk about coaching though. This is what I do. This is how I run a class, but they don't talk about why they do it or this. Now people are starting to dive deeper into it. Even if it's more deliberate practice, which is an IP format, it's still a better way for them to do that, where we're focusing more on the eco side and diving in deeper on that. So it really pushes the conversation forward. And this is going to be, like they're talking about, this is actually about the coaching, it's about the training. And what I liked about the Globetrotters event I attend to is you get to talk to a lot of coaches on the side or at the open mats, and we talk about coaching in different ways, but it's not in the format where everybody's talking together, maybe 2 or 3 people or one-on-one, but this is going to have so many people together just talking about it and how we push it forward. So I'm excited about that. It's like a really concentrated, and we need to have stuff like this. It shouldn't just be the traditional model or, oh, I watched this DVD and, oh, this is how I run my class and I do these techniques and, oh, I don't skip a warm. We got to understand why we're doing this stuff. So the only way we're going to do it is by talking about it, and getting together and physically doing this type of stuff. We need this type of environment. So that's why I'm very excited for that, just to get these concentrated conversations going in a big group like this.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing a minute ago. When I go to the camps and stuff now, it's more so to watch and observe how other people are teaching a class and commanding the crowd and, all that stuff and getting those sidebar conversations. And now we've put together a 3-day weekend of all of those sidebar conversations being the meat and potatoes that we're going there for. So I'm super pumped about that.
Yeah.
The level of instructional design that I'm seeing, just if the biggest change that came out of this whole movement is that coaches have a learning intention for their day, huge.
Right. Regardless of your approach.
Plans, huge. Just coming at it from a professional method of coaching.
Yeah, and that's what I want to see really from the coaching day is, I've been in one of Greg's classes and I've seen how little instruction he gives, but you can tell there's a lot of thought behind it. So I want to see what goes on in his head to come up with a class, how much thought, how many iterations he's gone through playing with that before he got to the point where he's delivering what he's delivering in the class. And I think that'll be eye-opening for a lot of people. The amount of effort that goes into perfecting a game or perfecting a overall practice.
Right. And that will help people understand why there can't just be a grab bag of games for them to take and have that become their program.
Yep.
Yeah. And Pat, like you said, like almost everybody signed up for it immediately. And it made me wonder if we did the camp all 3 days just on coaching, probably would have been just as popular.
Yeah, I think so.
No rolling at all.
I mean, I'm the most interested in. Like, I feel like the knowledge, like the participation in the classes is one thing, but for me, like when we moved to this coaching model, it kind of unlocked that passion again, right? I'm getting older, right? Like I can't roll and I don't feel the same energy that I did from just going to train every day like I used to, right? But having to put my brain power into like how I'm going to translate or how I'm going to coach or how I'm going to form my plans, that's like a whole new set of energy, right? So I'm like most interested in that. Like not just the coaching stuff on Friday, but the next 2 days of just watching, right? Like, frankly, I could care less if I rolled, right? Like, I just want to see how the people are doing what it is they're doing, because that's like where more of my focus is these days. And that's where I'm getting like my own energy and drive out of it. So, if we did that for 3 days, I'd be perfectly happy. But there's just like, there's so much to learn there. And just to observe how people are doing those things, it's just good for my own growth.
Model teaching is powerful as a instructor development tool, because we'll get to see how students respond and then how the instructor pivots and then the follow-up questions that they have. So just like that continuous instructional cycle throughout the session is going to be so valuable. So I agree. I'm there to observe the coaching and the students' responses to what's happening.
Yeah. I think that's a good point with the question that came up about it. Are we live training for 8 hours every day? Like how tired are we going to get? I think there's still tons of value if someone's a little exhausted for a session and they just want to sit back and watch it. It's not like just watching someone teaching techniques. There'll still be plenty to learn by observing a session if you're not actively training in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's when I was at the Globetrotter camp in Arizona, I did a little workshop on the ecological approach and, had other instructors watching, talking. And then later in the week, another guy did a skill acquisition one, but it was more of IP based deliberate practice. And I went and watched that one because I want to see what other people are doing, how we're doing it. We had great conversations all week. We're coming from two different ways of doing it, but it was funny. There was so much little overlap. There was a lot of overlap going on, and we were able to talk about those different things. And to me, that stuff's valuable. The training's going to be great. You could go as hard as you want, but just sitting back and observing and watching and taking in how other people are doing, that's just as valuable sometimes, So it's going to be good, even if you're tired, if you're don't want to roll every time. I'm not going to roll all day. I'm going to roll as much as I can. I'm going to regulate myself, how I do it. You can't go 100%. You can't do it that long. So you're still going to learn, even if you're not actually doing. You can, take in that knowledge about
the mental reps.
Yeah. So we're coming up on about an hour here. Anything any of you want to add or touch on before we wrap it up?
I want to say thank you to the ladies that signed up. I know there's not that many of us, but it's super important that you show up. So I'm really excited to train with you and meet you.
Rob, Aaron, any last words?
Just to answer people's questions, and you can fill us in on where we're at with it, but we do want to record it and make sure that there's footage of it after the fact for anyone who couldn't make it. But
so Jeff here is my nexus to the videographer. So we've been actively talking through some stuff this week. So there will be something. We'll be shooting most of it and have something produced.
Awesome.
Yeah, my final words. Yeah, I'm just looking forward to it. And if you missed out, sorry, jump in on the next one.
Time.
We want to keep doing it. It's only 50 people this time. Maybe we'll get 100 next time. Maybe we'll do more. We'll see. But I think there's definitely a market for this. People are interested in it. We have coaches that are interested. We have students. Everybody's interested. Let's just keep going this way. I'm excited for it. I'm glad it's been put together.
Awesome. Well, thanks guys for joining us today. I think this is a great conversation. I enjoyed it.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Thanks for having us on.
Bye, guys.